What's up guys, Tyler Casey here, and today I'm going to be talking about editing assets. I'm going to talk about all the different types of editing assets there are and a bunch of different ways that you can use them. I use some sort of editing asset pretty much on every project. They're super important to have when editing. This is going to be a longer video, so if you want to skip ahead, I'm going to have all the time code down below so you guys can easily skip to different sections and find the piece of information that you need. Make sure to check out our website, Cinepacks. We have a whole free pack section where I'm going to be using a lot of those effects and assets today. So make sure to download those if you guys want. There's hundreds of free effects for you guys to download. So let's get straight into it. First, let's talk about what an asset is. An editing asset can be pretty much anything that you add to your edit. For example, this can be a film burn, a lens flare overlay, a film border, any type of transition or overlay effect, grain overlay. The list goes on. Editing assets are a collection of files that you use to add to your edits and stylize them. One of the biggest misconceptions that I've seen in comments that using editing assets is cheating and unprofessional. This is not true at all because there's lots of professionals who use editing assets. It's all about how you change and manipulate the effects. Using effects, templates, and assets is not cheating at all, and professionals use them all the time. It helps speed up the editing process. It does take some time to finesse and manipulate it to work with your edit and look good. So now we're going to talk about the different types of assets and effects that there are. So there's a handful of ones that you're going to encounter, and I'm going to show you guys how you can use them. So in this video today, I'm going to be covering pretty much all the effects that you're going to have to import like regular footage. So these just overlay on top of your clip. You would import them just like you would regular footage. I'm not going to be covering anything that you import to your effects folder like in Final Cut or anything like that. These are all just regular effects. These effects work in Final Cut, DaVinci Resolve, Adobe Premiere, and many other editors. So I have a handful of assets right here and they're all different. So I'm going to show you guys the difference between all these. First, let's go ahead and play this one. This one is a .mov. So when we play it through, we see it has some film burn transitions. So if I go ahead and grab this film burn right here and play this over my clip, we can see that it is not transparent. But if I go ahead and grab this paint for red right here, play that over my clip, it's automatically transparent. So the difference between these two files, even though they're both .movs, this one is just a regular ProRes that is not transparent. And then this one has an alpha channel file. To see if an effect has an alpha channel, we could drop down this menu and click Show Transparency Grid. And we can see that it is transparent. We can see the black and white checkered board on the background. This PNG right here is transparent as well. But if we go to the film burn, it is not transparent. We also have this green screen wipe. Obviously that is not transparent. This is an animated PNG right here. So this is an MOV as well, but it's not transparent. So I'm going to show you guys how we can make those transparent and use these effects. So first, let's cover the film burn. Majority of the time we can see that it's on black. So if we want to get rid of something that has a black background, we're going to come over to Effect Controls, we're going to come to Opacity, and we're going to drop down this menu right here. So pretty much everything in this little section right here, you can see that they're all divided. We can select lighten, screen, color dodge, linear dodge add, or lighten color, and this is going to remove the black for us. So I'm going to start with screen. So now you can easily see that it is overlaid. So let's go ahead and play that through. And we start to get transitions. So we can even play around and see if any of these work better. Sometimes I like linear dodge add. And as I scroll through these, you can see that the colors and other things change. These paint effects are already transparent for us, so we don't have to apply any blending mode to them just yet. We can apply blending modes to add effects to them, but we're not going to cover that yet. So next, let's drag on this PNG. It's basically just a photo that we can drag out and it creates a nice transparent frame for us. But let's say we wanted the one with grain that kind of bounces and is a little bit more fun. A quick tip, if your asset isn't the right size as your frame, you can scale it up like this. A great way to do that is right click and click scale to frame size. So if we were to turn screen on this one, we can see that doesn't really work. We're going to use darken, multiply, color burn, linear dodge, and darken color. So I usually go with multiply, and look at that. Now it's transparent and we see the little bit of grain coming through. So pretty much if you want to use any asset, either you drag it on and it's already transparent, or you use multiply or screen to get it to work. If you guys are having trouble with the alpha channel, make sure your editor works with alpha channels, and if it does, make sure to update your software because sometimes that can be the issue. Lastly, sometimes we do have green screen assets and other people as well. These are somewhat common, and to get these to work, you just need to drag on your software's chroma key. So I'm gonna go ahead and drag Ultra key onto here. We're gonna grab the eyedropper, boom, and we have a transition just like that. So that's one of the first ways that you guys can use assets in your edits. Next, I'm gonna talk about the blending modes and ways that we can use those to get more effects on our edits. So let's talk about blending modes. Blending modes can be used to create a lot of cool things when using assets, especially when you have these alpha assets. You can really add a lot to your scene and make some really cool effect. Let's start scrolling through these blending modes until we see something cool. So already, as soon as we went down to darken, we have this cool opaque look to it, and it makes the red a lot darker. So this already looks cool as its own effect right there. So this is what I'm talking about when I say you have to change and manipulate assets to make them look different. So we're going through now, we got like this darkened color, and it kind of looks back to normal. So let's keep going through here. Lighten kind of makes it more opaque. So that's kind of cool. This basically affected, and this is on lighten color. We can see it kind of affected like the darker blacks in the image. So let me see if I go over here to color and I crunch the blacks a little bit, add some contrast, we can see that it kind of affects more of the darker parts of the image. So this is actually pretty cool. Definitely a cool effect if you were looking for something like that. So let me keep scrolling through here. So we're on light and color. Let's go to overlay. We just get some more like light opacity ones, which are kind of cool. Difference is kind of cool. Difference can definitely like add a little bit more to your scene. You can see it works better on some clips. It basically does like the opposite color on the bright points of your image, which looks really nice. And then we have exclusion, subtract. So it basically does the opposite color. Divide looks super crazy. Saturation is another really cool one. So it saturates the parts that are part of the effect. And so that's pretty much it, scrolling through all these. So you can really see how much you can play around with these, but you also want to be careful. You don't want to make it look bad or corny or anything like that, but there's definitely a lot you can do with these, but you can also use these wrong. So like, let's say we had this $100 bill wipe. We definitely would not want to add screen, or, I mean, maybe you could in certain instances, but you could just see how bad this looks. Using blending modes can help you, but it can also make your videos look really corny really quickly. Good. So let's check out blending modes on, let's say, one of these scratch effects. So these aren't, so we do have to use screen to make these work and be transparent. If we did use multiply or any of these other ones, we definitely get some different effects. We can continue to scroll all the way through and see all the different effects. We see difference does add a type different effect. We get like that effect right here. Subtract basically makes the scratches black, which is pretty cool. So we also have this pack right here. This is our dirty film effects, and this has a white background. So the way we'd want to use that, it's basically the opposite of the scratch effects. It's not transparent and it's on a white background. So what we want to do to use that is we simply just change the blending mode to any of these right here in this category. I'm going to go with multiply. I was selecting the wrong clip, and there we go. We have the effect just like that. So we can go through and we can play around with some of these other ones. Obviously, like screen is not gonna work because there isn't much black in the scene. But if we go down to overlay and we start scrolling through these, we'll definitely get some different type looks. Let's see. So difference definitely has a crazy look to it. It basically makes it look inverted, and you can see how it interacts. So that's one of the main ways that you guys can change and use the assets to get them to work. Now I'm going to continue to give you guys some tips on ways that we can change them. And one of the ways that we can change them is changing the color. And the way I like to use this, I like to use tint, or I like to use the HLS. So the first one I want to talk about is, let's go ahead and grab tint. This is a super easy yet powerful tool. This is a native Premiere plugin. So we're gonna go ahead and grab on tint. And what we can do is, it says map black and map white. So if I were to map black, it would change it to any color that I want. And if I were to map white, I could change it to any other color. So you can see that we totally flip the look of this right here. I'm gonna turn this back to black though. And let's say I want this color, I don't know, let's say I want it dark blue. So now we have the effect just like this. And the cool thing about this is when we change the blending mode now, actually let's do a lighter color. Let's do like a light pink, put a little bit more white in there so it's more prominent. When we scroll through the blending modes now, we're gonna get a lot of different effects as well. So you can see now that we changed it pink, we get like some green on the sides here. We get some really cool effects. So if it's just a black and white effect, I would definitely try tint, because you can add some really cool effects and different colors to the scene. So since this one has red, what we would want to grab is HLS. And what we do with that is we can actually change the hue. So you can see it's changing. We can change it to any color we want. We could change it back to multiply. And you can see we change the color. Not only in color do we just change the hue and brightness, the hue of things, we can also play with the brightness. The brightness can definitely help you change an asset and make it fit your scene. We can see when we add more exposure, add more contrast, you can definitely play around with the blacks and the whites to kind of give you a different look over your footage. I would always recommend doing that. And one of my favorite things to do is to animate the HLS. This is super easy to do. You can just go ahead and drag that out, and as it plays, it's gonna rotate through different hues, which is really cool. We can do the same with this as well. So we're gonna change that blending mode to add right here. So let's say we didn't have tint on, and let's say we grabbed HLS. This isn't gonna work because there's no color in this scene. Even if I turn up the saturation all the way, we're gonna have no color. So what we would have to do is we'd have to turn on that tint, and now it's cycling through the hue. So if we play it, it's gonna change colors just like that. So this is another one of those ones where I said you can change the exposure and whatnot. So we can make it brighter, we can add contrast, we can bring down the blacks a little bit, whatever looks good to you. I would always recommend doing that. So same with this paint effect right here. We're gonna wanna change the hue on this one. And there's a few different ways to change the hue. I like using the HLS slider because you can keyframe it. You can play with the saturation as well, which is nice. So if we did map black to something else, it's not gonna work that good. Screen or multiply aren't gonna work because we don't have a solid black or a solid white background. So quick summary of everything. If you wanna remove white, we're gonna use this section right here. And then if you want to remove the black in the scene, you're gonna wanna use this section here. Either screen or linear dodge add works good. This section makes gray transparent. So the basics of motion are pretty simple, and most people know this. The effect isn't covering the whole screen. So what we have to do is just come over to motion tab up here under effects control, and we're just gonna scale it up. So if you want these little white edges on the side, you can keep those, or we can just move it over just like that. If you wanna move it by hand, you can just tap the motion button right there, and you can drag and squeeze it. As easy as that. So let me turn screen on so we can see the overlay effect. Another thing I like to do is easily flip the image, which is a part of motion. So what I like to do is I like to type in flip right here. This is different for every software. This is how you flip in Adobe Premiere. If you guys know another way to do it, let me know down in the comments. But so here we can do a horizontal flip and we can do a vertical flip. So those are two different ways that you can drastically change the look of your image just by flipping it. This is definitely a useful tool if you want to change the look or feel of the asset. We can also keyframe these right here. So we can zoom it in so it can be zooming in slowly as time progresses. That's something you can do as well to change the asset. If we want to add some motion blur on here, we can go ahead and grab the transform tool. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna allow us to come down here and change the shutter angle, bump that up to 360. So now if we scale, let's say a punch in right there, we're gonna get a nice little motion blur. It's kind of tough to see because these are just lines. Let me turn this on to normal real quick so we can see. Let's find out where my transition is. You can see it has a little bit of motion blur. We can also move that somewhere else, like let's move it to the beginning. You can see it kind of zooms in. Motion's a pretty simple way to make a transition. Here's another way, it's kind of considered a motion, is how to use a wipe. So this isn't making it all the way across the screen like before. We're just gonna zoom that in a little bit. So let's say we actually want to go right to left. We can easily come back and type in flip, horizontal flip, and now it's gonna move right to left, just like that. So now what we can do is we want to overlap these. I'm gonna show you guys just quickly how to use motion and keyframe. I'm gonna make a cut there. I'm gonna make a cut here. And now what I want to do is I want to draw the mask. So I'm gonna start the mask right around here. And let me go there, drag that up, and I'm gonna invert it as well. So now what we want to do is we want to select this right here to toggle on the keyframe for our mask. And now what we can do is we can move forward a handful of frames. I'm gonna go ahead and start dragging my mask out. There we go. And sometimes you can just move all the way to the end and it may work, but then we can go back and fill it in where it didn't work that well. This is kind of twisted. Let me straighten that out a little bit. Awesome. And then let me get to the last frame here, and right about there, it should be fully. All right, so now let's play that through. It works. So let's go frame by frame and just see where we can touch it up a little bit. So no, I think we're good. So right there, it goes a little bit early. So what we can do is we can just come here and we can create a keyframe right there. That'll just, and it'll hold it. And then let's just duplicate that keyframe to here. I held Alt or Option. So it looked like it went a little early. So there it is right there. We can just drag that back. So like I said, we have to touch it up a little bit. See, it looks like it jumped a little bit ahead before. And I'm just gonna go through frame by frame using my arrow keys. So that's a way that you guys can use motion using the horizontal flip, vertical flip, and transform. So those are some of the most basic ways that you guys can change an asset. There's also some plugins and effects that we can use right in Adobe Premiere that will help spice up these assets. So first I'm going to talk about the ones right in Adobe, and then I'm going to talk about some third-party ones that I use. So when I type in glow, I do have a lot of third-party ones right here from Red Giant Universe and Sapphire, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab this VR glow right here. And I'm gonna grab this scratch effect. So what we can do is let's get it transparent, turn it to screen, and let's just throw on that VR glow right here. And we can play around with the threshold to give it a nice blooming glow. I'm gonna try like 0.7 right here. And we can see this gives the effect like a really cool, nice glowing effect. We can also still change the color of that. So you can see it definitely adds a nice outer glow. This is a great alternative instead of using Universe. So like, let's say Red Giant Universe does have some really nice plugins that we can use. Let's check out their glow real quick. I feel like that one's a lot easier to use, the Red Giant, because it kind of gives you a really good look right out the gate without having to do too much work. And it's pretty easy. They also have some really nice presets. So as you can see, I can play around with this, and I really like the look of the Red Giant glow. I feel it has like the best looking glow. It even has like that nice like RGB in it as well. There's a lot of other effects that I use from Red Giant. Like I like the Ecto is a really cool one as well. We could slap that on. Hollow Matrix is another really cool one. I mentioned these in a lot of videos. It adds a really cool futuristic element to the effects. Those are just a handful of ways that you guys can change and manipulate editing assets that you guys use. There's tons of other ways that you can continue to do it, like quickly. We can easily just speed up any clip by hitting R on our keyboard or going into speed duration. And this will speed up the effect or slow it down. So you can see we get the scratches way faster. So you can also like cut, and the possibilities are endless with assets. So don't just slap them on, and make sure you're playing around with them and trying to create something new that hasn't been seen before. So let me know in the comments down below if you guys enjoyed this video and if you have any questions. I'm Tyler Casey with Cinepax. I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching.